Joining us for a look across Apple is Tsvetta Kaleynska, consulting founder and CEO of Relook Global. Tsvetta, it's good to see you, and I'm glad I saw you yesterday as well. All right, let's start out with privacy. There was a report out about Apple powering Siri with partnering with Anthropic or OpenAI. What are you seeing in terms of the reaction to that, development as it relates to Apple?
Good morning, Diane. Good to see you as well. So I analyze consumers and I analyze what they say on social media platforms like Facebook and Instagram. When I dove into the data just over the last 7 days in the US, there were 1.5 million mentions about the brand Apple. Out of those, privacy actually comprised of 26%, which is a huge amount of discussions just about that topic. It was actually a very important topic to consumers because privacy for Apple has, of course, been a very a differentiator for the brand. And it seems like right now it is actually under threat. And according to a report that you mentioned was recently shared by Bloomberg, the company has really failed to ship a more compatible, a capable version for its voice assistants that they demoed in 2024. So now consumers are actually coming with a huge, of course, concern about what's going to happen to their privacy and are actually encouraging the brand to stay to its true and stay with its core and keep everything private, so keep everything more Apple focused.
Yeah, no, you make a great point about that. That has historically been one of its differentiators, because I remember years ago there was a case, and law enforcement needed to get into a phone, and there was a battle between law enforcement and Apple about accessing the data because of how Apple approached privacy. That aside, right. Apple seems to be pursuing, kind of multiple things at once. AI, and whether they do things in-house or partnerships. And then, of course, traditional product updates. What are consumers' perception about this? Are they worried about this? Do they see, Apple's ability to kind of multitask, for lack of a better word? Or is this viewed as, consumers worried about kind of cohesive strategy?
Yeah, great question. And actually, I was hoping that you would ask me about that. So listen, what I saw just in the last 7 days in the US is that consumers have demonstrated a very clear pattern and sentiment of patterns that are highlighting almost like this interconnected concerns about their strategic direction. That really has to do with basically highlights of the brand that seems to be facing a very complex challenge between they have to innovate, so they have to continue innovation. Privacy has to be preserved, and of course, they have to continue satisfying their users or the consumers with a variety of product lines. But it seems like what consumers actually see is that the pressure, the competitive pressure across the whole portfolio of Apple is actually mounting. So they don't just see it as a brand almost competitive struggle that Apple is seeing. They see it that every single product line that Apple has launched, whether that's a phone or a different product, has just seen a huge challenge over the last course, which I know does not necessarily translate with what we see in terms of earnings and, of course, quarterly performance and growth. But those are several of the concerns that I saw on social media.
The things that analysts have been worried about is just demand for its crown jewel, for the iPhone, especially because of the tariff risk for Apple. What are you seeing about consumer patterns as it relates to just getting a new iPhone?
Consumers, of course, shared, and this is actually analysis that I did prior months. So since March, of course, the discussions about China and the tariffs and how they will impact the consumer have been growing. They have been consistent. Pricing, of course, is a differentiator. Has been a very much talked about topic among consumers, and that is a consistent, I think that's going to be the consistent challenge for Apple. So what is the balance between continuing to keep pricing, which we already know is high to begin with, and then balancing the act between China tariffs and, of course, like some of the marketing initiatives that they're also trying to focus on.
Where do you think that consumers are, who are, say, iPhone they're just in the Apple ecosystem, right? They have the iPhone, the Mac, the AirPods, etc. But they're like, I don't know if I want the next Apple device, right? Where are you seeing where consumers feel like Apple is falling behind? Is it design? Is it, just voice assistance? Is it the AI? What are you noticing?
I just analyzed the last 7 days of data, and there was a very consistent pattern of users wanting smaller and simpler products. So smaller phones, anything that could be held in one hand. And they did mention that it seems like Apple is focusing on too many complex initiatives. When it comes to iPhone, of course, 17, size concerns related to that. iOS 26, again, as you mentioned, the privacy concern that they have, in general, UI readability.
UI readability. All right, Tsvetta, thank you so much. That's Tsvetta Kaleynska, consulting founder and CEO of Relook Global. Thank you so much for the insight on Apple today and some of the consumer patterns recently. Shares of Apple a little bit higher in the pre-market.